What was it like in those pre-production meetings, though? Trying to set this thing up. Obviously, you've got two continents. What was it
Yeah.
like in those meetings?
Thank God being talent, I don't have to be in on the setup stuff.
Okay.
What happened with us was that we kind of met, as I recall, we just knew this is happening. And I can't even remember now how much in advance we knew, but it wasn't like we were talking about this for, months and months and months.
Oh, right. No.
It pretty much came up relatively quickly, and we got to the site at 6 in the morning, and that was when we started to talk about what we were going to do and how we
Oh,
were going to
wow.
do it. The When you talk about production meetings, they had already worked with the people who were down there, the production people who were down there, Larry Magid, guy who
Yep.
I know for years from Electric Factory, and so we were like, as you face the stage,
Yep.
we had a whole setup on the left-hand side of the stage as you face the stage, and
Uh-huh.
that was set up for us. And we had a little sort of interview area, and we had all the mics and everything there. And then it's a live event,
Yep.
so you don't know. We had a sort of vague idea who was coming on when, and we kind of knew even early on in the day. We were like, oh, so Phil Collins is going to play both, and he's taking the Concorde, and how's that going to work? And you know, so it's a live event, so you never
Yeah.
know who you're going to get, who's going to agree, who's not going to agree to talk to you, and it's a seat of the pants kind of situation, which makes it terrifying and wonderful.
Yeah, because I remember I mean, the electricity between you and Martha, as far as the excitement in your voice. I remember when Led Zeppelin was coming up, and you could just see it on your face. You were just like, "It's Led Zeppelin," and
Yeah.
it just, it kind of evoked that emotion to everybody, who was watching.
It's so Led Zeppelin in particular for me. I mean, I know I said they're doing Stairway because I knew that they were going to be doing that, and it was really exciting that Phil Collins was going to be on drums. And again, from where we were sitting,
Right.
it sounded amazing to me. Post concert, they got ripped apart, as you know. It's like
Yes.
a horrible gig, and it sounded like hell, and it sounded great to me. The mix was
Yeah.
great for us at the side of the stage.
Who are you excited to see? You obviously probably had a little bit of a list, but were you excited? Like, oh my gosh, they're here. Was it just Led Zeppelin, or were there so many other acts you
Well,
were just waiting to see?
listen, I mean, the Stones, and we talk Dylan, and for me to walk around backstage, and I'm standing by one of the trailers, and I'm looking in the window of the trailer, and there's Dylan and Keith Richards like farting around on guitar, like trying to work a song out that they were going to do. I, so then I was like, oh hell, I got to see that. But I was, the Pretenders. I was really excited to see the Pretenders. I was excited to see the Cars. I was really excited to see stuff that was happening in Britain, and
Oh yeah.
it was a little bit difficult to do that. But I did get to see a little bit of Queen, more of that whole thing. I got to see after JJ Jackson. He was our guy in England, so he was sort of
Yes.
covering that, and the rest of us were in Philadelphia.
Oh man, JJ Jackson. I got such great memories of him as far as just growing up with him. All you guys, all the VJs, but him in particular, just because I just happened to be when I was watching MTV, he just happened to be always beyond, I guess,
Uh,
his time slot. So amazing guy.
yeah, I miss him every day.
What was there's a lot of unpredictability. I've done a lot of live, and you've got to fly by the seat of your pants. You said this
Yeah.
is a live event, and you've got to be able to to kind of coast from one thing to another. Did you have, I mean, did you have that a lot? Did you have that where you really had to be on your toes?
Yeah, because there's no prep. Whoever shows up is who you're talking to. So
Sure.
it's got to be here. Um, and yeah, we certainly, all of us had to be on our toes, and we had to try and figure out, what was real and what was fake in terms of the information we were getting. And by that, I know that one of the things that we were hearing, and I remember Martha mentioning this in one of our breaks, was that Bruce was famously not there.
Right.
And somehow somebody said something to Martha about someone spotted Bruce's lighting rig or something. And I'm like, what? It's just the lights. What do you mean? We were just all hoping that Bruce was going to come. I mean, he would have been obviously an amazing act for that moment. Um, but yeah, we all had to be on our toes, and we had to, we talked to the Pretenders, and Chrissy is a notoriously difficult interview.
Yeah.
And you have to be up on not only what the artist is up to currently, but what they're
Yeah.
doing on stage and how do they, part of our deal was to sell Live Aid and to get people to donate. And we
Sure.
it was a big part of how we, the five of us, were all feeling that we felt a part of this moment. And that was part of our gig, not only to talk about, hey, how you feeling and how's this your gig stage show and all of that. It was, let's talk about what is happening in
Yeah.
Africa. Let's talk about donations and let's talk about this terrible crisis and how we can help and look at this event and what is this event going to inspire. A little bit
Right.
later on in the day, Dylan makes the famous comment, I hope that some of this money goes to American farmers. And Farm Aid was born. So it really had, and Farm Aid is still around, as we know.
Exactly.
So it has a very long shadow, Live Aid.
It must have been really nice for you because you're going home. You know, it was in
Yeah.
your hometown of Philly. I mean, you worked at WMR, a famous station there. When you found out it was going to be announced, because it was supposed to be first they wanted New York, then Washington
Yeah.
D.C., and then of course it was Philly. When you found out personally, were you kind of elated that it was going to
Oh
be in your
my,
hometown?
I was flipping out. I was not only that, and once we got the lineup, and my pals, the Hooters, were opening.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, it just doesn't get any better than that. And I mean, backstage, I know a lot of the Electric Factory people and reporters from the Bulletin and the Inquirer. I mean, these were all my friends. It was like a sort of a interesting homecoming for sure.
Yeah. Well, I talked to Larry Magid, and he was happy. He was like, we had to get a Philly representative there. Yes, we had Daryl Hall and John Oates, but we
Yeah,
needed somebody to kick it off. And of course, the Hooters just had the album on. I talked to Rob Hyman, and he was on cloud nine, but also scared to death.
yeah,
Obviously the biggest concert they'd ever played at the time,
yeah,
but they killed it that day.
for sure, for sure.
It's just it was just one of those days that it was magical. I mean, you don't find many days like this. Yes, there have been others. I mean, there was Woodstock and this. I think those are the two biggest concerts we can put in together.
Well, you know. Bangladesh concert,
uh,
was pretty big.
that was pretty good.
George was the guy who really kind of came up with the idea of how can the music business help.
Sure. Yeah, he did. And
Mm.
then the biggest thing I think when I was doing some research is Martha actually came up and she said that Live Aid was kind of the apex of rock and roll. Kind of Elvis to there. I love that comment of hers.
Yeah,
What do you think about that?
it was a moment. And it's hard for people who I guess who weren't there to really understand because I think that what we were feeling on stage, talking about this, talking about it with the artists, being there, we really felt like we were a part of something. And I,
Yeah,
and I think I hope the people who were watching also felt that because it was this insane worldwide event. You were watching something happening live.
yeah,
And that was just incredible. And I think it sort of created a community. I know that I felt a part of something. The five of us, I know did. I've talked to JJ about it afterwards, and we all felt really amazing they were saying, well, this is the record business gets a conscience. And I was like, okay, I can see that. And not that they
yeah.
didn't have a conscience before, but it
Right.
certainly was a big moment. It was sort of like everything sort of came together for a great reason.
say what you want about Bob. Yes, he's all got his shortcomings, but the one
Oh,
thing that I
Geldof?
noticed about him, yes, but he decided to help. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I think there was a you may have known Canadian Terry Fox. You know, he ran attempted to run across Canada to raise money for cancer research.
Oh, yeah,
Started in
yeah, yeah.
1980, got almost all the way 3,000 miles on one leg, basically. But he was asked, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "I just decided to help." And I just felt
Right.
that that's almost what Bob did. He and
Yeah.
look at 40 years later, we're still talking about it.
And it's funny too, some of the artists who played talking about dealing with Geldof.
Yeah,
He didn't ask you to play. He
no,
said, you're playing. You're going to play. This is where you're going to be in the day, and you're playing. Okay, Bob. You don't want to say no to Bob Geldof.
I mean, come on, sir. You know, Paul McCartney's going. Okay, I guess I'm gonna, take a day out of, take. You
Right.
got my day. I'll be right there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the lineup though. I mean, when you look at it, I've been obviously watching it over and over again just to see. You see different stuff that you might have missed, but the
Mm.
lineup, I don't think you're going to see a lineup like that again. It was amazing, kind of, just the energy and what I've been told is a lot of egos were kept, put at the door, and they just got up and played.
I think that that's the case. It seemed to be. It's funny the stories that I get afterwards. I do think the artists that I dealt with were all, really pleased to be there and were excited about the moment. I didn't know this until later, but Rick Springfield is one of the guys who he told me years later that somebody told him that Clapton wanted to say hello to him, and he didn't want to meet him. He was afraid because he was focused on what he was going to do on stage, and he blew off meeting like one of his idols.
Oh my god.
You know. So I mean, talk about setting your ego aside. He was like, "I'm just Rick Springfield," you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I talked to Howard Jones, and he brought his backing group Aphrodisiac out there.
Yeah.
They were on tour, and they were supposed to do two songs, and they were warming up outside, and I guess the little trailer they had little trailers and stuff, and out in the hallway it was David Bowie and Pete Townshend. He's like, he only did the one song, so they were kind of upset, but they were able to. He said the attendance was low, but it was quality. He got to warm up in front of David Bowie and Pete Townshend, which is obviously one of those things he'll probably never forget.
Yeah. I don't want them to review.
What are your memory? What is the lasting memory that you have? Like if you're somebody says Live Aid, what's that? What's the first thing that pops into your head?
Hmm. It was freaking hot.
Yeah.
I think it was the 90s that day. But what I remember is towards the end of the night, when things were winding down, and the feeds from Britain that was finished, and it was just us in the United States, and things ended, I think about 11.
Mhm.
And what I remember is we were all, like I said, we were there at 6 in the morning, so we were blasted. And the producer that we were working with on our site there on stage, Brian Diamond, comes over and he says, "Okay, Mark, we want you to do the wrap up." And I was like, "What?" I think I had already had a couple of beers already and a glass of wine or something, and okay, and talk about, seat of your pants, talk about, being on point. I had to do a 45-minute show wrap with like winging it, basically. Here's things that happen. So go ahead, you talk about that. Okay. I remember that being terrified. And I being with Martha, being with Alan, being with Nina in that situation. I mean, we were by that time we were family.
Yeah.
We worked together for a lot of years, and we loved each other, and it really was, again, it sounds hokey for me to say it now. Like I felt we all felt a part of something and felt great at each other. We felt really just positive and
Sure.
warm, and like we made freaking difference. I mean, I always
Yeah.
joke about what I do is a monkey can do this stuff. It's no big deal. And but on that day, what we did was important.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
remember, that day I was like, Mom, I've got $20 in my thing. I'm donating because I'm sitting
Yeah,
there watching and I could tell how impassioned you both were. You and Martha
yeah,
were on there. And it's
yeah.
just like, this is something that, I've got to be a part of and I'm doing my part. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people did that around the world.
Thanks for not mentioning my shorts, by the way.
I remember that, but hey, you know, everybody, everybody's got those times, You just tell the producer next time,
Those shorts live on. Let me tell you.
you still have them, right?
I do, and I have taken just yards of crap over the years.
You probably were just like, okay, I just ran out.
I
That's
knew it
what
was
I'm
going to be
wearing,
hot. I knew it was going to be hot.
Please. And was that uncharacteristic for Philly that time of year? Was it normally that
Oh,
hot?
yeah, man. The
Yeah,
Northeast summers, hot and humid.
yeah, yeah. It's true.
It's like the Triple H is classic for Philly and New York, hazy, hot, and humid. And that's
Yeah,
what it
I grew
was.
up in Cadillac, Michigan, so it was
Mhm.
hot, but it was not Africa hot like you had
Yeah.
that day.
Oh man. Yeah.
I mean, it was bad. Has your perspective changed on Live Aid, evolved over the years, kind of, especially since you watching documentaries,
Yeah.
retrospectives, and things? Has it changed?
I still look at it as a really impressive event, an amazing feat by Geldof. I think whatever, weird stuff, there was disputes after where the money was going and how it was being
Right.
distributed. I I think that that's irrelevant. I think that it got worked out and that a lot of people were helped.
Yeah.
So I still, and even though there were things that, there was the Live Aids that happened after that, and there were other benefit shows that sort of started to happen after that. But that really was, as they say, the mother of all benefit shows, you know. So, and I haven't, over the years, it hasn't really diminished at
Yeah.
all for me.
Real quick, I'd like to just kind of talk about a couple of things, performances, things I get your thoughts on. Obviously,
I'll
Queen.
try and remember. My memory
Well,
is sketchy.
Queen, you've probably watched it over the years. What
Yeah.
did you think? What did you think of their performance?
Jaw dropping. It was Freddie Mercury in his it was Max Freddie Mercury. And Max Queen, that band was made to play an event like that. And what can you say? I wish that I was there.
What about you two? I felt that they became a stadium act then. They kind of brought themselves to the world.
No question. That waving that white flag when Bono, pulled that out. And yeah, that they went from a great band to where they are,
Yeah,
to a mega band. And they were on a level with Queen and other bands that were such huge superstar acts. It really the their political stance melded with the day.
yeah.
And we got a better sense of who they were going forward. What they did that day gave us sort of a window into what they were going to evolve into, and just jaw-dropping.
Now, I've heard it from two different people, Mark Kelly from Marillion and then Hazel O'Connor. They were backstage, and I guess you two, the other band members, were not happy because they were supposed to play three songs
Yeah,
that day. They wound up only playing two because of him going out in the crowd and
it
things.
went a little
They
long.
People thought that they were going to break up because it was that embattled, but at least we find out they didn't, and then they went on. But could you imagine if that was their pinnacle?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know what you know about U2, but they basically almost break up every album.
Every year, yeah. Another one was, like you said, Bob Dylan. Being able to see him up there with, that had to be amazing. Keith Richards, Ronnie Wood. I
Yeah,
mean,
Dylan was quintessential Dylan, but at least he was doing stuff that we knew.
yeah,
Because Dylan can play. He can play stuff that but in a way that you don't recognize it.
he's like
But
Prince, what
it,
Prince used to be.
Prince, right? Prince could do that as well. And I think he was mesmerizing that day. He didn't, he wasn't being precious about his performance and like I'm going to do some sort of improv thing. He delivered. He knew what he had to do, and he delivered that day.